Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, here with my top 7 2011 fighters of the year. What I want to do is to discuss each guy. Then I'm hoping that the YouTube Nation leaves their top 7 picks in the comment section so we can debate it. I think it'd be a great discussion. I understand some of the guys I'm going to name are controversial, but I believe they did some special things. Let me also point out, too, that, my picks are really based on what I think actually happened in the ring, right? If a guy got robbed after giving a great performance, I'm going to recognize him, okay? I think the best judges are our own 2 eyes, not the official judges. Okay, let's start it off. Number 7, going from number 7 to number 1. Number 7, you've been knocked down 3 times. Finally, Joe Cortez has seen enough and stops the fight in the very first round. Your career is in jeopardy. After all, you haven't been a Boy Scout. You've served time in prison. Now, of course, you're out of prison after blowing it on probation, right? You're out of prison, and then you get drilled by supposedly a light puncher in the first round. For your comeback, you fight one of Mexico's favorite fighters in Mexico, and as you enter the ring, the crowd can be heard yelling, El Perro. In the very first minute of the fight, Alfredo Angulo unloads on you, straight right hand. You have limited head movement. You're not defensively gifted. That straight right hand knocks you down. That's the moment of the year. In the round of the year, the fighter who's on the canvas is my number 7th pick. He's James Kirkland. Because what does Kirkland do when he gets up? Does he move away from Alfredo Angulo? Does he flash a jab to maintain distance at Alfredo Angulo? Seriously, when's the last time you've seen James Kirkland flashing a jab? No, James Kirkland goes to work. James Kirkland starts throwing hooks. James Kirkland is up against it. El Perro is up in his face. James Kirkland lets his hands go and literally comes from being down on the canvas in Mexico against Alfredo Angulo early in the first round to knocking Angulo down and then putting on a dominant performance and winning that fight. All I could say is James Kirkland's on the list. I understand he had a rocky part to 2011, but when you have a match like that and show fighting like that, you're on my list. Number 6, you're in Canada against an unbeaten Canadian phenom, right? Your opponent is 25-0 with 24 knockouts. And here again, he's in your face and he's throwing hooks. He's David Lemieux. If you're our 6th pick, Marco Antonio Rubio, you treat Lemieux exactly like how Buster Douglas treated Mike Tyson, right? Lemieux is very much like Tyson. You have him walk into jabs. You have him tire himself out coming forward while you fight long, right? You're doing veteran moves. You're hitting him with a jab. You're staying outside. When he gets through your jab, you're covering up. You're doing defensive moves. You're not leaving yourself open. You're keeping the fight at a measured pace. And oh yes, you knock him down. Oh yes, you actually not only beat him, not only take the decision away from the judges, but you convince his corner you're the better man by getting his corner to throw in the towel. Let me just point out that Marco Antonio Rubio did other things in other fights in 2011. I know he's not on most people's top 10 lists. He's on mine. And let me just say, 5 fights, 5 KOs, he's definitely a fighter to watch. My number 5 pick just lost to Yorkis Gamboa. He had 11 losses. Now he's in Puerto Rico to fight a national hero who happens to be an unbeaten champion, Juan Manuel Lopez. If you're Orlando Salido, my number 5 pick, you tuck your head behind a high guard, you play angles, you throw hooks from angles. Real sophisticated stuff. You know your opponent is inverted, right? He's twisted. His dominant hand is his lead hand, but you make sure that he can't land that lead left hook. You encourage a shootout, knowing that your defense is better than his and you're actually working angles. You're not in front of him, you're off at the side, right? Salido put on a great show finally after he dominated that fight. Questionable scoring, but he dominated that fight to such an extent the referee decided to stop it. And I'll tell you what, Lopez is lucky the referee stopped it, even though Lopez lost his title, because Salido was doing real damage. And I encourage everyone to look closely at Salido. Understand this is a guy who beat Robert the Ghost Guerrero and then got stripped of the win after the fact. You're talking about a guy who went the distance with Gamboa, takes Lopez's title, and beats Robert Guerrero, in my opinion, one of the best fighters in the sport. Orlando Salido is my number 5 pick. My number 4 pick, I have to say, I underestimated him. Right? He was 2 times the champ at 108 pounds. Now, here he was fighting for the 112-pound championship against the champion, Julio Cesar Pingo Miranda, who was supposed to be the knockout puncher in the fight. Understand, Miranda at the time had 35 wins, 29 by KO, with only 5 losses. This fighter, Brian Valoria, was supposed to be the technician in the ring. He wasn't supposed to have the big-time power. All he did was come out and knock down the champ in the very first round. He then fought a Floyd Mayweather style. Valoria is a technician's technician and literally would hit Miranda with counters when Miranda would come inside. It was a masterful performance in a fight in which he wasn't supposed to be, the power puncher in it. He ran out of gas in the last 2 rounds, made it to the finish line, took the title. So what does Valoria do in his first defense? He was the underdog in his first defense against the former 108-pound champion Giovanni Segura, who at the time of the fight was ranked number 9 on Ring Magazine's pound-for-pound list in all of boxing. Foolish pundits online like yours truly thought that Valoria had no chance in the fight. Right? Segura, in stopping Ivan Calderon twice, got inside and literally feasted on Calderon's body. Many didn't think that Valoria had the power to keep Segura off of him. What happened in the fight is shocking. Everyone should see the video. Valoria actually attacks Giovanni Segura, punishes him with counter left hooks. Punishes him with counter left hooks. Beats up Segura to the point where Segura has a knot on his head until finally the referee has seen enough and stops the fight. Right? Very technically dominant, very classic performance by a champion who's underrated. I would encourage everyone to look at really one of the best performances of the year, and really for the body of work, this guy is my number 4 fighter, Brian Valoria. Now, number 3. People talk about the best pound-for-pound list. I just did, right? You say, oh, he's the best pound-for-pound. When are we going to start talking about the best day-to-day list? You're Juan Manuel Marquez. You're 38 years old. 38. And you're fighting one of boxing's best pound for pound. Many claim he is the best pound for pound. A man 5 years younger than you are. At a weight 144 pounds, that's 9 pounds. Think about it. 9 pounds over your current lightweight title, right? Marquez, when he's not fighting Manny Pacquiao, is actually one of the lightweight champions, right? Now think about it. You're a greater than 4-1 underdog, right? And everyone knows that if the ages were reversed, given your technical mastery, if you were 5 years younger than Manny Pacquiao, you would clearly be at least a 4-1 favorite, right? If you're Juan Manuel Marquez, all you do is methodically spank Manny Pacquiao for 12 rounds in Manny Pacquiao's worst outing since the last time you fought him, right? You have Manny Pacquiao following you around the ring like a lost puppy looking for a counter right hand, right? And all I'm saying is Pacquiao found that counter right hand time and time again, right? I don't know what the judges were doing. They weren't scoring this fight. Marquez won this fight going away in one of the dominant performances of the year. He lands on my list as the number 3 fighter of 2011. Now, number 2 is interesting. Number 2 is so good, we take him for granted. He was the 2010 Ring Magazine Fighter of the Year. He might well be the best fighter pound for pound in the entire sport. I have him listed as number 2 on Dwyer Top 10 Boxing.blogspot.com. Arguably, he had a better year in 2011 than he did in 2010. And all he did in 2011 was fight an absolute masterpiece in stopping previously unbeaten Sergei Zinzurek, an excellent underrated fighter who hit the canvas several times, even though he has an excellent chin. Right? Think about it. He beats an unbeaten fighter who's a former champion. Right? Zinzurek beat guys like Joel Julio when Julio was viewed as the future of boxing. Right? And how does Sergio Martinez follow up the Zinzurek victory over an unbeaten fighter? By fighting another underrated, unbeaten fighter in Darren Barker and stopping him too. All I could say is, think about it. This guy's fighting 2 world-class, unbeaten fighters, and he didn't allow either fight to get to the judges. And like other great fighters, Marvin Hagler before him, Martinez wants to fight the best. He's been calling out Manny Pacquiao. He's been calling out Floyd Mayweather because even though he was the 2010 Ring Magazine Fighter of the Year, Martinez is not satisfied. Compare and contrast his desire to push himself to fight the best with what's going on right now with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Right? I mean, all I could say is so many guys in boxing are dodging the elites. And to see an elite guy doing elite things, going through a year where he fights 2 fights and neither guy he fights has any losses going into the fight and winning both by knockout. All I could say is Sergio Martinez is my number 2 fighter in 2011. Now, the only reason he's not number 1 is because the top spot in 2011 goes to one of the truly unbeaten fighters in the sport. He fought Arthur Abraham and dominated him to such an extent that the closest judge had it scored 118 to 111. Right? That's the closest judge. Had this guy winning that fight by 7 rounds. And in my opinion, in his next fight, the score should have been the same. He fought Carl Froch, another quality opponent, in a unification match and completely dominated him. And it's not just the domination, it's the manner of the domination. Systematically taking apart guys with counters, counter left hook, distance, spacing. In the 4th round against Carl Froch, who's supposed to be a big hitter at 168, Carl Froch was up on the ropes. Andre Ward, our top pick, was right in front of him. Compare and contrast what happened at the end of the 4th round with what happened whenever Carl went to the ropes against Glenn Johnson. Right? Andre Ward knows how to fight you up on the ropes. He's one of the very best counterpunchers in the entire sport. Ward uses the entire ring. He can beat you from distance. He can beat you from up close. Look at how he systematically takes apart Arthur Abraham from distance, and realize that this is the same fighter who was accused of using headbutts inside on Mikkel Kessler. This is a superior talent. He had a spectacular year in winning the Super 6, and Andre Ward is my top fighter of 2011. Let me name 3 guys on the honorable mention list. The fighter who to me most resembles Sugar Ray Robinson, Nonito Donaire, deserves special mention here. Also, Hernan Tyson Marquez. Anyone who saw those Luis Concepcion fights know that he is one hell of a fighter. And finally, when you go to Australia and you fight the reigning cruiserweight champion, Danny Green, who's been on a run, who's been hurting guys like Roy Jones, who beat guys like BJ Flores, in other words, a legitimate cruiserweight champion, and you put the whooping on him that Antonio Tarver did, to the point where Danny Green, who had a rematch clause in the contract, decides not to exercise the rematch clause. You deserve an honorable mention here in my honorable mention portion. My honorable mention guys are Nonito Donaire, Hernan Marquez, and Antonio Tarver. Let me know what you think. I know there are a lot of tantalizing names out there. I'm sure I'm going to hear from the Miguel Cotto crowd, justifiably so. I know I'm going to hear from other people, the Lamont Peterson crowd, justifiably so, right? I'm sure I'm going to hear from quite a few people about quite a few boxers, even if a boxer has a loss. After the year Carl Froch had, I wouldn't be surprised if I hear from him. Of course, there's an unbeaten UK light heavyweight champion, Nathan Cleverly, that I'm sure people want to talk about. Let me know which fighters are on your mind. Miguel Vasquez, lightweight champion. Let me know which fighters are on your mind. Let me know who made your top 7 list. Thanks for listening to mine. Thanks for watching.